What you doing here?
Whoa, 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 whoa. We're making soap, and you need safety gear to make soap. You want to join us? Go get some goggles.
Howdy, and welcome to the Bar SC Ranch, where you will experience our journey of running a family business, caring for animals, and doing life together. Subscribe now and be inspired here at the Bar SC.
Hey guys, today we're going to show you something super cool. We're going to be making soap, and so the way that we're making soap is actually called cold processed soap, which means we're taking a chemical known as lye or sodium hydroxide, and we're mixing it with oils. And then that undergoes a process known as saponification.
Word of the day, saponification. Lye plus oil equals soap.
And that's what actually creates, those bars of soap that have been around for, well, at this point, hundreds of years. So we're going to walk you through a couple of our ingredients, and as you can see, we've got a big box filled with nonsense. You need a lot of different items in order to make soap. And we're going to walk you through what kind of soap we're making and what it's going to look like. So the first thing we need when we're making soap, hand these over to Kylie here. Kylie's learning how to make soap with me. We're making her favorite colors today for our soap, so she's very involved. And this is two different kinds of molds. One is a mold that's going to create a little sheep, and we'll show you what that looks like at the end of the video. But this is a mold that you pour into, and you don't have to do anything. It comes out the shape of the mold. This mold here is known as a loaf mold, so it creates a really long bar of soap that we would then plop out at the end and cut into bars. So that would create a more standard bar of soap like you might buy in the store. This we can do a little bit of decorating with, some designs on top and some color, swirls and things like that. That is a sheep. It's already very cute. So we can change the color up in a little bit, things like that, but there's not really a technique to changing the design much with those. The next thing that we have to have in order to make soap, this is just a little additive, is all kinds of different oils. So when we're making soap, we have a sheet, like what Kylie's got over there, which has a gazillion different numbers on it, and is very hard to read if you haven't gone through and familiarized yourself with the different categories. But what it really is an online soap calculator. So you can go online to different websites and put in what oils you want to put in your soap, and then this website's going to spit out exactly what the qualities are going to be of your soap. So how hard is it going to be? How cleansing is it going to be? Is it going to be very moisturizing? A whole bunch of things like that are going to let you know that your finished bar of soap is either going to be really, really drying, really moisturizing, or somewhere in the middle, dependent upon what kinds of oils that you use. So this here is a gigantic vat of olive oil. We're going to use that in our soap. We've got some coconut oil. What else is in there? Sunflower oil, and there's one more that's hiding from us. Here it is. And some cocoa butter, and the cocoa butter is hard, so is the coconut oil, so we'll have to microwave those to heat those up a little bit to make sure we can mix everything in. But those are the oils we're going to use for this particular bar of soap. That kind of thing, it changes. It's not hard and fast that we always use these for, but this is the recipe we're working with today. And the final thing that's really important to making soap is sodium hydroxide. You'll notice there's all kinds of warnings on the bottle. It is a chemical, and it is a very dangerous chemical if you don't use it properly. In the bottle, no big deal. But as we start making soap, we're going to put on all of our safety gear, and we're going to walk you through that. So before we get anything like this opened or on our skin or on anything that we're touching, we're going to go put on our safety gear and check back with you in just a moment. Okay, so now we're back with all of our safety gear on. You see that both Kylie and I are wearing gloves on our hands, long sleeve shirts that cover up a majority of our torso. We're wearing long pants, and you can't see, but we're also wearing closed-toed shoes. This is all very important, the goggles, everything that we're wearing, in order to keep ourselves safe when we're working with the sodium hydroxide, because that, before it's put into soap, once it's in the soap, it's not dangerous, else we all would have died long, long time ago from just cleaning ourselves with soap. But the process of mixing it with the oils before it's actually saponified, when we just have a container full of sodium hydroxide and water, that can cause a very serious issue, can cause burns, and if you're inhaling the steam, can cause upper respiratory issues. So that's why we're working outside. You can do this inside, but in a well-ventilated area. And two, we have our bodies covered so that if for some reason, kittens, we end up with sodium hydroxide being tipped over or moved around, we don't have to worry about having gotten it onto our skin. It's not a big deal. We're all covered. So now that we're safe, we have all of our ingredients laid out, we're ready to begin. So the first step, now that we're safe and we're ready to start making soap, is to mix up our oils. So we have specifications here on our sheet as to how much of each oil we want to be adding. So we have a scale and we have a little container. And so Kylie, go ahead and tear our scale out so that we're not actually weighing the weight of the container that we're using as well. It's going to be that one right there. Yep. And we're going to be weighing in ounces today because that's what's easiest, in regards to how much of each quantity we're going to be using. If we used grams, we'd be here counting up to like 500 grams. It's too many. We're going to use ounces. And the first thing that we need is going to be olive oil at 16.8 ounces. And so what Kylie's going to do is take our olive oil container here and pour it in until on this little dial here. And now 16.8 ounces, what happens after 16?
You move up.
We move up to a pound, so we have to watch out for that. It will never read 16.8. It will, however, read 1 pound, 0.8. So we're going to be looking for that to say 1 and that to say 0.8. And we're going to repeat this process for each of our oils. Some of them are going to need to be heated up, like our coconut oil and our cocoa butter, because they're solids and we want to melt them in order to be able to actually fully incorporate everything into one another. So we're going to start our measuring, measure everything out into one of these 2 containers, and then we'll move on to our next step. A little bit more on the dangerous side of things and why we're using all of this safety equipment and being very careful with what we're doing. The next step, we have ice, we have some filtered water. You want to make sure it's not too many minerals in the water will react and cause issues with your soap. But now we're going to be adding in lye. So we look at our little sheet here and it says that we need 6.73 ounces of the lye. So what I'm going to do is take my little container and measure my lye out into that so that I know that I have the right amount of lye for my mixture. What you never want to do is add water to your lye. So if this is the container that I'm going to be making my lye water mixture in, I wouldn't put my lye in first and then add water over to the top of it, because that's going to create a really, really fast explosion of a reaction and can cause what's actually called a lye volcano, which means lye water goes everywhere. And like I've explained, that would be very, very bad. So what you do instead is you have water and you have lye separately, and you add your lye to your water, and that way you can add it in slowly and stir as you go. You don't create that same horrific volcano of a reaction that can be quite dangerous. So what I'm going to do is measure out my 6.73 ounces into my small container. I'm wearing my gloves and my safety equipment, so now we're all good here. So today we're doing what's known as super fatting our soap, which means we're adding more oil for the amount of lye. So there's an ideal ratio of how much oil reacts with how much lye, and it depends on the different oils that you're using, which is why we use a soap calculator to give us our incredibly numerical sheet of values, because there's no way we want to do all those calculations ourselves. There is a way to do it, but this makes it way easier. And so there's that perfect ratio of how much oil can react with how much lye. And we take that in our soap, and rather than accidentally having too much lye per the oils, which would leave us with a lye-heavy soap, which would cause irritation on your skin and not be good, there'd still be lye in your soap at the end of this process. We're going to do what's known as super fatting it, which is adding more oil per the lye that we add so that we have oil left over in our soap at the end of the saponification process. So that's what's going to make our bars nice and moisturizing. Is the lye is going to take up so much of the oil and make soap, and then there's going to be leftover oils to stick around that as we wash our hands, we get a little bit of moisture added back into our skin. So now that we have our lye measured out here. We have 6.73 ounces of lye. We're going to be adding in 16.8 ounces of water. And something that we do to make our lives a little bit easier, because when lye reacts with water it gets very hot, is we're going to use ice as a part of the water that we're adding in. So not just extra ice, but we're going to count the ice as part of the weight for our water. And that's still going to be a very hot mixture. Don't get me wrong, it's still going to get warm. We'll get our thermometer out and show you just how warm. But this is cold water and ice. And give us just a moment to mix the lye in and we'll show you just how warm it can make it.
So here I'm going to make the coloring for our soap. We have 3 different colors here, and I'm going to do a teaspoon of each coloring into these little cups here, and then I'm going to add a tablespoon of oil into each as well. And this will just, mixing it up separately will help keep all the clumps out and help it keep it nice and smooth. Soap takes a really long time to make. Ashley is still playing with lye. Stick around to see our next video and see the rest of the soap making process and how we made this cute little sheep.
If you enjoyed this video, we'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe and leave a comment about what you'd like to see in future videos. We'll see ya back on the ranch.